and welcome back to another episode of the Petey Performance Podcast. Solo episode for you guys today. I have my little coffee from E53. I am up in my place of work and I'm ready to record. I was going to record this one last week, but because when you're a business owner and a solopreneur, let's say, you get sidetracked into doing more important things and more time-bound things, so I didn't get to record last week, but I'm looking forward to recording this one, and I actually placed an emphasis on wanting to take some time before recording this podcast, because if you listen to my previous solo episode, you will know that last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I took the time out to identify my why. Essentially, I wanted to identify and put down on paper what my vision was, what my mission was, and what our values as a business at Petey Performance are, and the vision I want to see and why I work in this industry. And this was prompted from listening to Athletes Authority on air with Jordy Taylor. Shout out Jordy if he's listening. Don't know if he's listening or not, but we'll give him a little shout out. Him on with Carl Goodman, who's one of the business owners there, who does a lot of the business operation stuff. And he posed the question that a lot of coaches and a lot of business owners don't actually identify what their mission is or what their vision for the future is and why they want to get into business. Then they don't know what their values are. So then sometimes they act not in accordance with their values. And I've been slagged in the past for speaking about my values quite a lot, especially by my ladies team I used to coach. The odd time they'd say to me, "You're not going on about values again, are you?" But I think the reason that I go on about it is because once I started to understand the importance of having values and acting in accordance with them, my own self-worth and self-esteem improved as a result, and I was able to improve my life because I was given self-efficacy, I suppose, in relation to believing I was capable of doing anything, essentially. Sometimes to my detriment. Well, not really to my detriment. I put myself out there. I try things. Some things work, some things don't. But you've got to be willing to try things as a business owner. And living by my values as a person and as a business owner has led to more opportunities for me and has led me to feel more fulfilled in my life. So that's why I've continued to, I suppose, speak about that myself on the podcast, myself with my friends and my peers, my clients, my athletes, other business owners, other coaches. And I've got good return out of it, so I think other people could get return out of it too. Now, in the past, I did understand the value in having a why. I'm quite purpose driven. I like to feel like I have a purpose. It's one of the reasons that I don't really enjoy just sitting, being silent and being. I like to have a goal. I like to achieve things. I like achieving recognition. Not even from external, but internal. I like when I'm on the golf course, or if I was out kicking balls at the posts and I kicked a certain amount in a row, or I kicked over from a certain difficult angle, or I played a quality shot out golfing by myself, it gives me a little kick, a little rush of dopamine, and I enjoy it. I enjoy challenging myself, and I enjoy challenges, and that's one of the reasons I'm in the game that I'm in, I suppose, and that's one of the reasons I've been somewhat successful so far, is I like challenging myself. I like challenging others as well, my athletes, teams I've worked with, etc., to try to drive standards on, drive performance on, and elevate themselves, play above themselves, and realize your potential, as broad as that sounds, but just be better, I suppose, and see what you're capable of. Because I think it was Socrates that said, it is a real disappointment. This isn't a direct quote now, but I'm paraphrasing from Socrates here, which is a bit surreal. It is a real disappointment for a man to grow old without realizing the strength and beauty that his body is capable of. And I truly believe that as well. But I think it's the exact same thing in terms of our own knowledge as well and our ability to problem solve. I think it's a real disappointment, and it's a real pity when people don't achieve their potential and don't see what they're capable of and don't become the highest version of themselves. Now, sometimes they might be okay with where they're at, so there's no issue with that whatsoever. But I myself want to see what I'm capable of in this life, because you only get one and it can be short. So I'm going to continually look to push myself on in absolutely every facet of my life, sometimes to my own detriment, but that's a real goal of mine, and I like living with that purpose, I suppose. And having a specific why in different elements of my life is very important to me. And as I was speaking about earlier, I knew the importance of having a why, but I didn't really identify what my mission was, what my vision was. I just kind of was winging it, essentially. So when I was opening the gym in Roscrea in Tipperary, I had a why behind it. I wanted to offer the best quality S&C facility to athletes in the Tipperary area. For whatever reason, I had to close the gym eventually, for multiple reasons, obviously. COVID didn't help, but I took a different route, and I'm glad I took that route, to be honest. I learned a lot over the course of that process, and then I kind of, for a year or so, I don't know if I had a specific why. I think I was just trying to help people. That was my why. And I was trying to coach people and build a business, I suppose, but I didn't have that higher level purpose. Then when I started getting into the GAA and seeing the standards of S&C and performance that were in the GAA, and comparing that to what was available in rugby, I was kind of disappointed. And I also saw how much Gaelic footballers and hurlers were putting into their performance, and realising that it's not for lack of trying, but it's potentially a lack of knowledge and a lack of resources that is being experienced in the GAA. So I identified that my why was to elevate the industry standards in terms of strength and conditioning and physical performance available to athletes in the GAA in the country. And that was having a why, and that was having, I suppose that was my vision. But I didn't have my own values. Well, I had my own values actually, but I didn't have my business values. I didn't have a mission statement. I didn't have a manifesto. I didn't have it actually down on paper. So I thought it was useful last week, or a couple of weeks ago, to say I'm going to set aside the hour. I'm going to write down what my vision, my mission, my values are, and then off the back of that, I'll know if I am going to be hiring people, what the roles are going to be. I'll also be able to see more closely if people that I'm hiring are aligned with our values as a business, and they'll fit well into our system and into our business, into our community. Whereas at the moment, over the last couple of years, with any people that I've taken on board to work with us, I've been kind of just gauging it myself, or feel. Now, some of it's been off their knowledge, and some of it's been off their experience, and some of it's been off their ability to be wrong, essentially, and be okay with being wrong and wanting to be better and knowing that they don't know it all. But a lot of it has been just if it feels right or it doesn't feel right. The question I often ask is, would I like to have lunch with this person every day for the next couple of months? And if the answer is yes, then typically they're going to come in and work with us if they have the required knowledge, experience, and they bring a high level to their work and they want to drive things on, and they want to work with us as well, because just because they're the right person for our business doesn't mean that we're the right business for them, essentially. So I said that would be much more easy to do once I had all of this written out and once I had it on paper. So I sought to write it on paper. But then in regards to writing your vision, your mission, your values, I don't think you can do that unless you know your story. And I know my story, and I've spoken a little bit about it in a couple of podcast episodes and maybe touched on it and brushed over it at times. But other people probably don't know my story. And then they might not understand my why behind why I got into this industry. And a lot of people just get into an industry that they're good at doing something in this industry, but it doesn't explain why they get into it in the first place and why they have that purpose of trying to help people within their specific challenges that may relate to them and elevate the standards of the industry thereafter. And when you meet multiple coaches and multiple therapists, you realize there are a lot of commonalities. And I know people say that most S&C coaches are failed athletes, and that's because that stereotype is typically true. We often have had life experience where we've had athleticism, or our athleticism and our abilities as an athlete, tied to a big aspect of our personal identity. And it's something that I spoke about in the last podcast in regards to injury, what I learned over the course of my injuries and my experience as an athlete. And it's not dissimilar from other coaches in the industry as well. So in relation to my story, I just got it down on paper, and that actually turned out to be the largest portion of the document, and the manifesto, as I called it. The mission, the purpose, the values afterwards were easy. Once I knew my story, I was able to put the mission down, I was able to put my purpose down, my values down, and everything just flowed afterwards. So as you guys know, and as I spoke about in the past, I've spoken about my struggles as an athlete and my mental health struggles, but there'll be some people on here that haven't heard this because they might be newish followers. I know that things have grown a lot in the last couple of years, so if you've missed it, you can reflect on previous podcast episodes where I did go through my mental health struggles, and you probably have seen the growth in me over the last couple of years as well, since I spoke openly about that. But it might be useful to go back over it, and maybe you'll take something different from it, even if you have listened to one of those previous podcasts in the last couple of years. So I was a frustrated athlete who wanted to play at a higher level, and adopted that as a key aspect of my personal identity and my self-worth. So if I wasn't performing on the rugby field, I was worthless as a human being. If you listen to my conversation with Ian and my conversation with other athletes, you'll know that's not a healthy way to live your life. That's a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And I do put a lot of pressure on myself, and I still do it in relation to various aspects of my life, and my friends and my family still pull me up on it. It's learned behaviour, probably. It's something that's come over time, and it's potentially because I was rewarded as a youngster in regards to if I played well on the sports field in school, I didn't get bullied, people were nicer to me, and I felt safer. And as a result of that became a huge aspect of my own personal identity, and I measured my self-worth as how effective I was as an athlete. Unfortunately, that then tied into me wanting to be the absolute best on the field, on every field I stepped on. From conversations I've had in the last week, as from conversations I've had in the past, you'll know that a lot of athletes realize that, okay, what's the easiest way to gain access to being the best on the field here? And they realize, okay, if my physical performance is above the level of everybody else, I'll have a little bit of an advantage and a bit of a cheat code. So I adopted that mentality and chased physical performance to my wit's end. Was good in the short term. I quickly separated myself from the rest of the team, the opposition, winning all the fitness tests. Like, I could run for days. I was stronger than I should have been for my size, and I just had an unrelenting mentality. I read Johnny Wilkinson's autobiography, as I said, and took it as this is the journal of how to be the best in the world at a sport. Probably not the best thing to do, and I probably took the positive aspects of it and ignored the negatives, because that wasn't going to happen to me until it did. I suffered chronic injury, as well as the odd acute injury, but chronic injury as a result of some kind of obsessive and compulsive behaviours in regards to my performance. So Johnny Wilkinson kicked every day, as everybody knows. I was playing out half at the time, and I knew that if I could be the best goal kicker in the area, in my position, or on the field, I was guaranteed to start every single game, because we all know rugby players that potentially aren't the best on the field of play. Maybe it's going out of the game a little bit now, but because their goal kicking ability is so far above other players in the team, they're guaranteed a starting spot and they're guaranteed to play the whole game. So I said, right, if I become the best goal kicker, then I'm going to have access to one of those starting jerseys. Easiest way to do so. So then Johnny Wilkinson kicks every day, so I'll kick every day. So I kicked every day, and I didn't understand the value and variability of practice and in the value of making mistakes in practice. So in relation to obsessive behaviours, I had to kick a certain amount of kicks over the bar without missing in a row before I could leave the practice field, which led to, on some days when it's just not your day or conditions are hard, me staying kicking balls for 2.5 hours cumulatively. And you can, and if you're thinking about it, if you have a bad day, okay, you're there for 2.5 hours. But if you have a bad week, you're there for kicking balls for maybe 10 to 15 hours or more across the whole week. Isn't great for your hips, isn't great for any of the tissues around there, isn't great for anything really, not great for your mental health either from experience. So I developed like a chronic hip and groin issue that was misdiagnosed a lot and couldn't be dealt with. I was playing for about 1.5 years or so in pain and playing at about 60-70%. And it's funny, conversations I have with Owen now and conversations I had with other athletes, I was just playing through it, and I was like, it wasn't a visible injury and it wasn't acute, so I thought nothing of it. I just thought I was soft and had to push through it. And I was also lifting really heavy because at the time that was all rugby players did. It was just strength and more strength. More strength will lead to more muscle gain as well. You'll get bigger, and the argument of me being too small will not be an issue because I'll be stronger in my lower body and I'll be bigger than them because that's all I need to do is lift really heavy weights. So this led to obviously the chronic issue. Eventually I couldn't play anymore. I was passed from physio to physio. As well as that, it's not just the training side of it that I was overtraining, but I was also, better preface, I was probably under fueling as well, because this is 10 years ago or more now, slightly more maybe. And it was during the period of carbs are bad and social media was just kicking off, and there was a lot of misinformation out there, and I had to deal with what you would say is orthorexia, so obsession around eating behaviors and healthy eating behaviors. So there was a period there, I remember in my first year of college, somebody asked me when was the last time I had a chocolate bar, and I think it was over 15 months ago I had had a chocolate bar, and that was including a protein bar, anything, because I just had such a regimen, and this is obsession obviously, of this is what I eat in the morning at this specific time, this is what I eat after I get back from kicking, before I go into school or into college, then I come back and I have this amount of rice, this amount of tuna and this amount of broccoli for lunch, then I wait till dinner and I'll have this amount at dinner, and that's it. And for the amount of training I was going, that wasn't going to cut it, so I couldn't figure out why I wasn't putting on weight. Sure, I was eating far too little, to be honest. Now, it was incredibly lean, but it wasn't of any benefit to me whatsoever. So I was dealing with that. Under fueling plus overtraining is probably going to lead to a chronic issue over time, which I've learned now, obviously, and I've spoken about last week. Eventually I couldn't play anymore because I was in that much pain, and physios were saying, look, if you keep playing through it, it's going to persist. You're not going to be able to play at your best. You're not going to be able to get to a certain level, so we need to drop you down, deload you. And I was taken away from all the strength activities, all the training I was doing, and I was given groin squeezes with a rugby ball, and I said, do them and you'll be fine. Didn't work. I was given stretches and like really minor mobility exercises that weren't going to have any effect. Do them 3 times a day. Didn't work. Like, this is persistent with mental health troubles as well, and trauma, which was, I may as well say it, clinical depression eventually. So it was obviously a melting pot of things that weren't going to be easy to come back from and sort of chronic issue from. So I was past physio to physio, getting more and more disillusioned. I'd taken a lot of my life had been dedicated to the sport. I was realizing that it was unlikely I was going to become a professional or play at a high level or the level I wanted to. And eventually I just said, to hell with it, this is not working. I'm putting too much into it. I'm missing out on what my friends in college are doing, and I just gave up. And I started drinking excessively. I dropped out of college. So I deferred my course, which I was trying to drop out, but my parents said, just defer it. You can drop out in a year if you want. See how you feel in a year. I started working, and missed a couple of years of what could have been my best years in sport, felt very isolated, and said I was never going back playing rugby again. Hit like rock bottom, essentially. That's like when I got to the stage of the clinical depression. I was on the meds, they weren't responding with me. There were days when I didn't get out of bed, didn't want to get out of bed. There were weeks where my mom was coming in just pleading with me to do anything. And eventually I think the first thing I did was I got up and I made myself a meal. And that was a milestone for me at the level or the stage that I was at. A terrible place to be in, but I got out of it, as you see now, and that will be solace to some people going through it, that it is possible to get there and get out of it. But I think, as Dara said in the podcast yesterday, a lot of the time it starts with you and your behaviours and what you can do for yourself, and realising that you are a capable person. You can get through anything, so you may as well try. So I tried, I got out of it. I began to mend my mental health. Going to therapy didn't really help me that much initially. Just said I was going to get on with it and try and do my very best. Went away actually on a J1 to Hawaii, which was good for me. And decided that, look, I don't start something and not finish it. So I said, look, I'm going to go back to college, see how I get on. If I finish that course, I can always transition into PE teaching afterwards, or physiotherapy, or do another degree or whatever. So I'm just going to finish it and take it week by week, year by year, and see what happens. So I went back to finish my my undergraduate degree in sports science and health studies. While I was there, then I realised I kind of miss playing rugby. I kind of think I could go back playing. Eventually met a good, decent physio that understood the value in loading tissue, and our physio sessions weren't the groin squeezes. He actually works in intercounty GAA, believe it or not, for years and years. He's a quality physio. They weren't just the on the bed clinical, okay, here's a list of exercises, go do them. He got me in the gym and started loading me, and then tested me. So it was metric driven. He also talked about other things, and he really helped me. And yeah, I'm indebted to him. I really appreciate it. And I've sent actually athletes to him since. So I finished my degree. I got back playing rugby, was really enjoying my rugby. I was probably at a level where I was playing better rugby, but I wasn't a better athlete than I was previously. So I was kind of frustrated by that. Went down to New Zealand to play a season. Didn't play great, but improved as a rugby player. Didn't play great is an understatement. I had a terrible time. Got back into my depression, actually, going down for the winter. And because I was still tying up a lot of my self-worth in how I was playing on the footy field. Came back, got back into rugby again, playing decently, graduated, secured a role as an S&C coach, continued playing rugby, working as an S&C coach, was probably playing my best rugby, I would say, actually, at this stage. And then I suffered an ACL injury. That took me out of rugby, and in your early years in the industry as an S&C coach, I was struggling financially because I was living in Dublin, working in Dublin, and making pittance, like scraping together to get by. Then my ACL tear, and that was tough, but I got back to work, back on the horse, and just said, look, I can't play rugby. What can I do now? I can try to improve as a coach. So I did my CSCS with the NSCA, studied for that, and just absolutely dove into any learning that I could over that period. Got way better as a coach, secured a job in Singapore, moved to Singapore, moved abroad, coached over there so much, like 60-hour weeks, and eventually burnt out before COVID, returned from COVID, said I'd make a go of it myself to try to get more for the work that I was putting in, and try to, because I was working in Singapore, I didn't really agree with business decisions that were being made above me for the company I was working with. I decided that it'd be good to have autonomy over what I'm doing, so maybe I could make a go of it. And look, I don't understand a lot of business principles, and when I was in Singapore, I realized that your success as a coach is not solely determined by your understanding and knowledge in regards to performance principles, rehab principles, all the rest. Marketing, understanding business, understanding how to sell, how to converse with people, how to communicate with people, is just as important, if not more important, if collaborated together than your knowledge as a coach. But if you have both, you're ahead of like 99%. So I said, look, I don't understand business principles to the best degree. Why don't I just try and open a gym? And through that experience, I'll probably learn quite a lot, even though it'll be extremely hard. And that was a real accelerator for me. I was forced to understand a lot of things, probably too soon, but it accelerated my growth as a businessman no end, I would say. So after that, then closed the gym, moved to Dublin, got work with a local GAA club, working with the senior team first, the men's, got a job with the hurlers, the ladies football job got opened up. I took that as well. Also doing juvenile stuff. Essentially started to scale the business, work with a lot of different athletes, improve in terms of my understanding of GAA and Gaelic football in particular. Showed me the importance of connection, communication, community, and caring. And those are invaluable, and they will tie into my values later on in terms of business. I attempted to elevate the standards of the club and guide them to success. I think we were successful in doing so. I think the standards of S&C improved from feedback from players and management. I think we achieved some success, not what we ultimately wanted to, but what is success for every single group? It's different. And just because you didn't win the comp doesn't mean that you weren't successful. But my own personal life kind of suffered as a result because I was putting so much time and effort into that, and I was probably overworked. And I saw what all my friends were doing abroad and in Ireland, enjoying life a little bit more, and I said, I kind of want that a little bit. So I made the decision then eventually to focus more on my personal branding and on my private business. I was doing that while working with the GA club, but it was kind of two separate businesses within a business and almost a side hustle. So I kept growing that. And eventually I said, could I just do the private stuff? And that's what I did, as you all know, when I went to Australia. And then I made that decision because I wanted to be less time poor, more time rich, more financially rich eventually in time as well. I don't mind saying that. We should be able to say that in our industry. I wanted to achieve a better work-life balance so that I can have a family one day and enjoy the aspects of life that I have been neglecting over the last 2 years of my coaching journey. 2 years, multiple years probably. And that's my story, I suppose. So now that I knew my story, then it was easy to understand what my vision is. And my vision then is an industry where athletes and coaches understand what actually leads to improved performance, how to integrate the multiple components together effectively and put the individuals, so the athlete, and their own health, the coach, and performance first above all else. So it's to understand that the physical is not the only thing. The psychological is not the only thing. Nutrition is not the only thing. Tactical is not the only thing. Technical coaching is not the only thing. It's all of these factors collaborating and moving dynamically together. I want to show coaches and athletes that, look, you can focus on one, but don't focus on one at the expense of others. It's everything dynamically in the system together that leads to performance. So we've got to try to develop the athlete in every facet, or in all facets, and every facet of your life as well, because it's also, from our conversation with Richie, it's what you're doing outside of the sport that's going to lead to better play within the sport. So listen to the Backdoor Cut with Richie Donnelly this past week, and you'll probably see some insight into that as well. I also want to see an industry in which practitioners are less confrontational and more willing to connect and collaborate. That's something that I'm still pushing, and a lot of people that I know are pushing it too. You don't push it though. You can talk about it, but you achieve change one person at a time. You achieve change by having good conversations and communicating effectively with good people and being willing to be wrong and open to other opinions. So you do that one person at a time through your interactions and through your conversations with those other practitioners. I also want to see and hope to see an industry where working in athletic development can be sustainable as a long-term career choice, because Working as I have over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't know. I don't think that's sustainable as a career choice. Starting work same time everybody else starts work, and finishing work at 10 p.m. if you're working with GA clubs, or 9 p.m. earliest, and getting home. I don't think you're going to be able to have a wife and kids, or a husband and kids, and keep them all happy and give them enough of yourself if you're living that lifestyle. Definitely not if you're doing that 6 days a week. So I want to achieve real change in the industry, and I want to work in this industry long term because I enjoy it so much. I don't know if that's achievable right now. I've seen a lot of coaches succumb to the pitfalls of it and try to get out. The majority actually probably go into private or go down a different avenue. I want to not do that, essentially. I want to continue coaching because I really enjoy it. I'm going to have a slug of coffee now because it's going to go cold. My mission then, after I had the vision, I could put together the mission, how I'm going to achieve the vision. The mission is to improve industry standards by offering a comprehensive online and in-person coaching program to athletes that are in need. I don't want athletes to find themselves in the same position I was in my younger athletic career. I don't want anybody to be in that position, to be honest. And I know that not everybody has the same network or the same people around them that I had. I'm extremely grateful to have the family that I had to get me out of that, and the friends that I had to stand by my side that are still there as well. And I know that not everybody has that. So I want to be somebody that can help them, because if I want to be the person that I would have liked to meet at 18 years old, that could have actually got through to that kid and helped him out and made it easier for his friends and family and made it easier for him. That's what I want to be, and that's the person I try to be every day. I also want to help athletes to, well, it's exactly what I've just said, to help athletes to not fall into the depths of despair that I once found myself in. And finally, I want to educate coaches and therapists on the importance of, number one, looking at the whole as well as looking at the parts. Number two, continual education and development, getting better every single day that you can, learning something new every day. Number three, maintaining a holistic approach by not becoming siloed into one area. Number four, understanding the science before being able to look past it. Number five, understanding themselves in order to communicate more effectively with their athletes and peers. Because how can you guide someone else and help someone else to understand themselves and achieve a higher level of self-reflection, I suppose, when you don't understand yourself and you don't understand why you do the things you do, why you think the way that you think. I think you need to understand what makes you think if you're going to improve in terms of your performance as a coach, and help athletes to improve in terms of their performance as an athlete and as a person as a whole. And number six, I want to help athletes or coaches and therapists to understand that in order to achieve positive change with anyone, you need to care. You absolutely need to care about them. Show the athlete you care first. Information can follow afterwards. I think that's invaluable, whether working with athletes, Gen Pop, whoever. So then I had my purpose down after that. My purpose is to help others, to show athletes and coaches my way, with the goal of helping them to find their own. So I know that my way is not the way, but I'm just showing athletes and coaches and therapists, this is my way. Hopefully you'll be able to take some principles from this or some elements of this and add it to your own way, but you have to carve your own path. We're not prescribing to dogma. My way or the highway is not what we do here. Then I want to help others to not feel isolated and poorly understood. In order, how I'm going to do this, I want to build a strong community of like-minded people who have similar experiences, experience similar challenges, have similar values, and who care. So similar challenges in their athletic life, in their personal life, in their professional life if they're a coach or therapist, But athletes and coaches that are aligned with our values as a business and my values as a principal tie into that, or my values as a person tie into that, I would say. And I want to show them that I care, and I want them to care about others in the community as well. That's how you foster community and a sense of community. I want to elevate the standard of performance coaching available to GAA athletes by improving education and by offering a higher standard of care than has been seen before. That's what I strive to do every single day. Be better, be better, be better, be better than I was the day before. And if I do that every single day cumulatively, the standard of care that I'm going to deliver is going to be quite high. So after I had my purpose down, which obviously has come from my mission, my vision, and my story, I've been able to put down my values. Now, some of the values are very similar to my own personal values, which I've done in the past myself, and it's something that we've done in the mentorship, the Petey Performance virtual mentorship, which has been, I've actually been blown away by that in the last couple of weeks, because we rounded off the first cohort, and sure, like, I thought, okay, I'm going to try and put something out here and see if it's beneficial to people, but then the messages come through from the people that were in the cohort of the mentorship, and I've just been blown away by what they've got out of it. And they're all saying the same thing: you need to keep this going. You need to help more people. You need to get more people into it, and more coaches, because I've taken so much from this, and you can help so many more people as well as myself, because I'm like, every single one of them has been willing to do a testimonial, and they've said, like, a couple of them are like, can I do a testimonial, before I even asked, because that's how keen they are to get people into the program, because they've got so much from it. So that has blown me away. And one of the actions in that, or one of the tasks in that, that surrounded the communication piece, was I wanted the coaches in it and the people that were in it to understand themselves a little bit better. So we went through the practice of identifying what your 10 key values in life are, whittling down those 10 into 5, and whittling down those 5 into 3, so that you have your 3 core values that you live by. Ideal world, you live by 10. If you don't have enough time or resources to live by 10, you try to align with the 5, and you'll probably feel better than if you were aligning with none of them. And if you can't do the 5, what 3 would you take and live by and still be pretty okay with? So in that way, you prioritize what your values are. So I've done that for my own personal life, and I reflect on it periodically over time, and probably refine it, and it probably changes from time to time too. But I thought it was useful to do the same thing for my business, and they actually were slightly different to what my personal life ones were, but some of them are similar. So my values, the top 10, are connection, communication, continual improvement, community, collaboration, health, honesty, enjoyment, education, and family. And that spells chef. And I've no idea why it says chef. It spelled chef when it came out. Easy to remember for me though in future. Basically, I want to connect with every athlete that comes through my doors, every coach that comes through my doors. That's going to be key, and showing that I care. I want to communicate effectively, and more effectively all the time. I want to understand language, the use of language, and use powerful language, cue athletes effectively, and show other coaches and therapists the power of communication and how we communicate. I want to continually improve myself, but I also want to guide athletes towards continual improvement. I want to foster a sense of community so that athletes feel valued. They have people that they can rely on. Coaches the same. They have people that they can network with, converse with, learn from, and help. I want to collaborate with all of the coaches and athletes in the group, and I want them to collaborate with others outside the group as well. I don't want groupthink, and I don't want us all to be siloed within this group whatsoever. I want to encourage collaboration with others all the time, because I've got nothing but good things out of that. I want to focus on health, obviously, because we're focused on health and performance, but I don't want to focus on performance at the expense of health, because sometimes we do, especially in elite athletics and elite sport, and at the higher levels of business and the higher levels of coaching as I've spoken about, sometimes you sacrifice other areas of your life which you should be focusing on for your own health. So I want to actually focus on positive and healthy behaviors. I want to be honest. I want honesty to be one of those key values that has to stay in there, because honesty and authenticity are things that I've got more and more back from. Speaking my truth or speaking my story out to you guys has helped more people than I could have imagined, and it, in return for me doing that, I've been able to help more people, and it's helped me to elevate my business, to give me more time back to live my life. It's gained me access to rooms I couldn't have thought I'd ever get into, like getting in with the All Black Sevens, getting into the Giants, getting into the West Tigers, into the Swans facility. Like, I couldn't have dreamed that was going to happen. And that has come snowball effect from me being honest and authentic in everything I do for you guys and everything I put out for you guys. I want enjoyment to be in there as well, because sometimes I think I forget and we forget that you're meant to enjoy this process. You're meant to enjoy being an athlete. You're meant to enjoy being a Gaelic footballer, a hurler, a rugby player. You can enjoy it by, I'm going to do a bit of a Neil Warnockism here, but you can enjoy it by putting everything into your performance and try to be a higher level athlete. Enjoy it by being disciplined, as Neil Warnock says. But sometimes we lose sight of that and we focus on achieving those marginal gains and the sacrifice that has to kind of bear the burden of that is our enjoyment. So I want to actually focus on enjoyment, and I want to enjoy my work. And if I enjoy my work, my athletes are going to enjoy doing the work, essentially, and working with me. And the coaches as well, obviously. Education. I'm always striving to get more knowledge, understand more. Just understand the world more, understand the universe more. Like, I might go a bit wishy-washy there, but understand myself more as well. And I want to guide people towards that higher level of education and understanding and knowledge that I'm seeking too. Maybe I should change that education to knowledge. Maybe that would be in a more appropriate word. I don't know, but that's the sentiment behind it. And then family is the last one, because things happen in people's lives, but I want to prioritize my family, because I didn't for a couple of years and I felt real guilt around it, because family is very important to me. I've two sides of the family, very strong family connection. We care about each other, very big families, and family is everything in life, I think. And I think we miss that a lot, and I don't want to miss that just to seek more and better business all the time. And I don't want my athletes or coaches working with me to do that either. So I want us to remember that that is a key value. And going in and speaking with Benji Marshall at the West Tigers reminded me of that there are more important things in sport. So then breaking that down to five, my 5 key ones are health, family, honesty, connection, and enjoyment. And the last 3 then, the most important, were health, family, and connection. So caring, your family, my family, putting your family first, and health, your own health, your mental health, your physical health. Holistically, your health is of the highest importance for our business of Petey Performance. And I've gained a lot from that process, I think. I've gained a lot, and I get to act in line with those thereafter. And even in the few micro stressors in the days afterwards, which were just like frustrated athletes dealing with frustrations around not being ready to get back to the pitch, I was able to act with compassion, and I was able to act with honesty, and I was able to show them that I cared, because I had at the back of my mind the question being asked to myself, am I acting in line with the values of the business, with the values of PD Performance, with my values? And every action thereafter and every interaction thereafter, it was easier to act in line with them. And I think I was a better coach, I was better help, I was more helpful, and I was more useful to them, and I cared more because of that process that I went through. And now I've clear direction. And then we actually did the exact same thing for the backdoor cut this week, because we're going through a period where we are thinking about getting sponsors. Well, we're at a level now where we've built enough of a brand, we reckon, that we probably should be getting sponsors on board in order to assist with the production of the backdoor cut, the booking, etc. Because it is a bit of a burden, like, to try and put it together, but people are loving it. We're getting loads of downloads. It's growing all the time. So we said, maybe it's time to get sponsors, but I kind of was thinking, let's not sell our souls here. Let's get sponsors that we're aligned with in terms of our values as a business. We're clear on our goals as a entity of the backdoor cut, and we're clear on what we want to achieve, because they won't be able to be clear with us unless we're clear. So we've written our manifesto. I have to complete it now today, but we've gone through our mission, our vision, our values. And it's a lot simpler process, actually, with 3 people. You'd think it wouldn't be, but we kind of had a lot of it done through conversations that we'd had indirectly, but we're actually getting it down on paper and getting it clear now, so that anything that we do, we can align with that. So if there are any sponsors interested in sponsoring the Backdoor Cut podcast, feel free to reach out. If you're the right fit for us and we're the right fit for you guys, then we'd be open to having a conversation and seeing if you guys would be aligned with us and would like to work with us. But I've done that now, and I think any business I'll work with or work for or I'll interact with in the future on a professional level, I probably would suggest they do the same. And if I'm in the business, I'd probably drive it, to be honest, because I think it's been invaluable and it didn't take that long. Well, it didn't take that long to put on paper, but it took quite a few years of trial and error and self-reflection and understanding to get them all down. But that's the podcast for today, guys. There's something there, I suppose, for business owners. There's probably something there for athletes too, for coaches, no doubt. But I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, I hope you remember to like it, share it, and send it. Catch you next time.